they've scored. Now listen to the numbers. 168 for, 63 against. That's the best defence and the best attack in the tournament. They've got a differential of 105. That's what that's what's put them in this position. And why? Because they're playing an extraordinarily different and positive game.
Yes.
A game where they cannot be as accurate or as exact as they would want to be or we would want them to be. They still get a bonus point win and flog Scotland, keep them to 5. Look, and Hugo Kearney's covering tackle is the greatest example of part of that. They're defending magnificently, which they weren't, and they're attacking magnificently, which they weren't. That's why we're saying it's great, because it's great to watch, and it's sexy, and it's winning. You can still play. Sorry, Joe. They can still play poorly,
yes,
and get a bonus point win.
So is your point here, and 24 tries for against across this championship, that we're almost going to have a mindset when it comes to sloppy Irish play, quote unquote, that this style of rugby encourages the player to take chances, to throw passes. They won't always come off. They're high risk, high reward.
You saw James Lowe there. We saw him go high into a tackle and get held up for what we call a choke tackle. It was a turnover. More was called, got out. Did the same thing in the last minute, got the ball away. And Conor Murray scored a try. We saw Josh Vanderfleet go down the short side, throw an impossible pass, goes to the ground and goes, Josh, that's terrible. We see Josh a couple of minutes later go through, come around the corner and throw a magnificent pass, and it sets up Ireland attack.
Now, that doesn't excuse the sloppy passes.
No, it doesn't.
So what you're always trying to do is make that, that pass that you throw as accurate as possible, and trust in the skill level of the person receiving it, because there is a high level of skill in receiving that ball as well, and being aware that pass just didn't stick today.
Yeah.
There was a lot ball down, much more than you would expect, and also Ireland were slightly less than accurate in the way they carried, the way they rucked out. They weren't sucking players into the ruck in the way they normally do to allow them to get round that corner. So we didn't see the continuity that we saw like against Wales at their best, or against England, as we saw when Rob did the piece before the game. So you still have within the system, or within the change philosophy that they have at the moment. I think there is a fundamental difference in the philosophy, even year on year. Maybe the last game of the Six Nations, but especially going into the summer, autumn and into the Six Nations, we've seen that different philosophy. Now, they haven't got it executed perfectly yet. Even against Wales they didn't execute perfectly, but they're still winning, which is a positive. And as long as they can do that and keep the same philosophy and build on it, they'll be able to become a better team.
Yeah, but just keep an eye out for the French game tonight. OK, so France, New Zealand play the most attractive rugby in the world, quote unquote. They will throw loose passes tonight.
Yes.
And there'll be a lot of balls that will go to deck and could be labelled as been sloppy.
Yeah.
But then some of them will come off, and it'll be the most beautiful offloading game that's been played in years. So I think we've got to find some sort of a balance here as well between forcing passes, taking risks with offloads, and also being ultra conservative.
And Robbie, on that point, what I see this from Andy Farrell is empowering players within a system to make decisions. And we're all about, it's too coach-driven, and I get that. Andy, to his great credit, has changed, and the players are empowered to make decisions.
Yeah.
Now, how do you make decisions? You've got to keep making and learning from them. It's not like, OK, we're going to empower the players and it's all going to be perfect. It doesn't work like that. These guys need another year of this before they'll start to get close to mastery of what they're doing. Will that performance beat New Zealand? In New Zealand, no, it won't. But they're on the way to getting there. And if they didn't start, they would have no chance. They got a chance with these things.
Okay.
The one thing I would say, though, is this isn't a classic Six Nations in terms of quality of the opposition, France aside. Now, that's not to say that England mightn't turn over France tonight. There's a circumstance we might go into a little bit later where they could do it. But Wales have had a bad championship. England have been pretty much in disarray, and they lost a man. The Italy game was a complete write-off, down to 13 men. And Scotland are off the back of a massive drinking session last week. so there's so we just need to look at it slightly through that lens. but you take advantage of the circumstances that you have.
And they were lovely scenes as well. It's not since 18 years ago, when you were young and full of hope and dreams, that we've seen a Triple Crown in Dublin.
Yeah,
so it's a lovely thing.
Yeah.